Hello.
Hi, Michael. This is Khadija.
Good morning. How are you? Or good
I'm
night.
good.
Good
Yeah.
evening.
Good morning over there. I'm good. How's your new year been?
Well, it's been very good so far. How about yours?
Yeah, pretty good. Um, can't believe it's 2026 though. But yeah, yeah.
We have about 18 degrees Fahrenheit here this morning. We had snow, and you're probably basking in 80 degrees Fahrenheit. You're in Singapore or Germany?
I'm in Malaysia currently, but
Oh, all right.
I live here in Sapporo. So it's freezing in Sapporo. It's got like there's a lot of snowstorms recently.
Well,
But yeah.
Sapporo is northern Japan. You said
Yeah.
you're in Malaysia or northern Japan.
Yeah, I'm in either places.
So where are you now?
Right
Malaysia?
now I'm in Malaysia.
Oh, okay. But you
Yeah.
have friends and family in Sapporo?
No, I also live there. I used to work there.
Oh, well,
And yeah, so um I often go back there, especially in the winter season because I love the snow. And there's just not much snow in Malaysia, if any.
yeah. Well, come to Chicago. We've got plenty this year.
Yeah. That must be. I mean, Chicago is always freezing though, but I'm glad you guys are getting snow this time around instead of just freezing.
Well, 2 days ago, we had 51 Fahrenheit and the temperature dropped 30 degrees in 24 hours.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah.
Hello, Joe.
Good morning. Good morning.
Coming, I'm here. Hello.
Hello, Martin.
Hello. Good
Yes.
morning.
Good morning, America.
Include Greenland. We're going to own Greenland pretty soon.
Which is America, right?
Well, it's North America. We're going to take over Western Hemisphere, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Martin.
Yeah, makes sense, makes sense. Western Hemisphere, there's this Monroe Doctrine, right?
Well, there's also the principle God is on our side. I'm not an extremist, but that goes back 100 years. That says we can conquer the world just like the Brits tried to do it.
Yeah, or the Germans.
Well, yeah, we could talk hours about that.
uh, uh, yeah. Hello, Christoph. Hello, Joe. Hello, whoever. Roland is also here. Hey, I have seen a video of a friend of mine. I put it on LinkedIn, and he said that he talked with a Volkswagen um, member of the executive level in China, and he said because he wanted to find out why are German cars in China half the price of the German cars in Germany. And he said, very short answer, but true. The price of the German cars in Germany is marked up by 100%, while the price of the German cars in China is not. And he said it is not about the subsidiaries, what the government pays, and is not about the lower labor cost, and it's not about everything else. It's only about the pricing. And the pricing is on what you do when you place your product. You just want to keep it expensive. And I find that quite surprising.
It's a competition, Martin. There's 30 million cars made per year in China, so that's called penetration pricing. You either compete on price or you don't participate. I mean, the German market is teeny tiny in the world of car production. You've seen the map. China is producing 30 million cars a year.
Germany is producing 4 million cars a year until 2024. Now, 3 million.
Well, the map I saw might be consumption, not production. So the map is a little different depending on production consumption. I don't know where the 30 million cars in China are going, if they're all staying in the country or they're also exporting.
Christoph, can you tell us more?
Well, they are definitely using a lot of their own cars in the Chinese market, but also a big chunk of the cars are getting exported. So it's really a good mix. I don't know exactly the ratio, but one thing that is definitely having an impact in China is that if you want to get a new car license plate, you cannot register a car older than 10 years. So you need to buy a new car on a regular base, and that is really driving the demand for new cars every year.
That sounds
Yeah.
very much like Singapore.
Yeah, but don't confuse production with sold units. There are millions and millions of cars, new cars that are building up. They're just somewhere parked. There are videos and information, lots of information. Also, how many BYD cars are not sold. So they started a campaign to flood Asian countries like Vietnam, Thailand. I have seen so many Chinese vehicles in Thailand. It was unbelievable. So they are desperately trying to get rid of this stock, and it's a real problem because they don't pay their suppliers. They don't pay their own workers, and the materials are piling up and piling up. So it's really, really a bad market right now.
What? China is a bad market or who?
Yes, yes. I mean the situation what China does. Uh, China has 150 different car manufacturers. And now get this. In the meantime, 400 car manufacturers went belly up. Can you imagine that?
So they had 600 car manufacturers.
Yeah, 550, whatever.
Okay. And
Where are they gone?
maybe they now build, I don't know what, but something else?
Nope. There is a mass unemployment rate in China. Companies are leaving China in big numbers. There is in purchasing there are two slogans. Um, CFC, China for China, so make it in China and keep it in the country.
Make
Und
China great again.
Nah, nicht this. And the other one is everything but China, ABC.
Uh-huh.
And they are talking Greater China, what also includes Taiwan. So also Taiwanese companies are trying to get into their footsteps into preliminary Vietnam, also in Thailand, and and also Malaysia. These are the big countries
Okay.
where a lot of companies are trying to flee this Chinese market.
Uh-huh.
So the news are really disturbing.
Why disturbing?
Yeah, because the Communist Party has told the people always, look, you will have a better life every year. Every year you will do better.
Which
In the
is true for the
meantime,
past 30 years or 35.
yes, and in the meantime, it's no longer true. We have a 30% unemployment rate of people younger than 30 years. 30%. Dig this. I mean, it's so crazy. And there are two things. One thing was the Evergrande. The Chinese have to pay the flat or the house before it's ever being built. So they have to fork over the money. It's not a loan or something. No, they have to pay cash, basically. The Chinese government did not rescue Evergrande. They let it go. And the lifetime savings of many, many people went down the drain. And now with the car industry, we are facing the same situation. There are more and more dealerships that are closing, and the Chinese have to pay their car in advance. But there are more and more dealerships closing and disappearing. And the money is gone as well. So have a look. YouTube is full of it.
Yeah, but I only trust in the truth. Christoph, you're in China. Can you confirm?
Yeah, I saw some of those YouTube videos as well about these cars getting sold and then stacked away, or they are just piling up at the factory parking lots. So I cannot really confirm how many there are, but it's definitely an issue. Yeah, they haven't figured out how to solve it yet. So it is, I think it's a big problem is the overproduction. So they all rushed into this new business idea to say like, oh, we can all become super rich if we just open our own car factory or car brand. And it was a little bit like a football club for many years. So if you have money, then you can just open your own car brand very simply. And that's, I think, what most of these brands are that are dying off. These are just bad design products that nobody really needs. But the numbers are massive, yeah, in terms of how many brands are closing down.
Hey guys, this is Rich. You know, what you're describing is an industry shakeout. And I mean, that's not uncommon. And, you know, the US has had the same thing and in many industries, and Europe has had the same thing in many industries. So it's not uncommon to go from several hundred suppliers down to anywhere from 5 to 3 that remain, you know, in the end. And I see the same thing happen in China, you know, in the automotive industry, frankly. So, you know, having 150 suppliers or whatever that number was that one of the guys mentioned, you know, in business today, you know, that they're not long for, you know, long for the ride, so to speak. You know, they'll be toast, you know, pretty quickly, in my opinion. And I think
oh, sorry, Rich, go ahead.
And I think all this overproduction, you know, that theme goes across every strategic industry that China's in. You know, they target ramping up technologies and, you know, basically supplying, you know, the domestic market and then going to, you know, outside the domestic market with, you know, cutting edge technologies and being the dominant supplier, you know, within that vertical, whether that be solar panels, whether that be, you know, EVs, whether that be, you know, some other category. But you know, it's the same model over and over and over again. And I just think that, you know, China's in that circle of, you know, basically the first 30 years, you know, that whole theory, you know, was tried and true, and it allowed them to grow, you know, substantially along with some other, you know, attributes. But, you know, now that model's changing because of geopolitical events, right? So, you know, that's my comment.
Yeah, comment for Martin. Germany is far more dependent on passenger car production for jobs and so forth. I mean, China is so much larger an economy than countries like Germany, Martin. So, even though you're very concerned that job losses in the automotive industry in Germany, including their export, but I think that's minuscule compared to the overall diversity and size of the Chinese economy. So even consumer goods, I mean, the amount of stuff that we buy that shows up at Walmart. I, to take, let's say, 10 or 15 vertical markets, automotive being just one, China is far more diverse, much like the US. And Germany is overly dependent on manufacturing, especially automobiles, machine tools, So I you always ask in our 4x4 for the last several years, Martin, what can Germany do? Well, again, I think I said a couple months ago, you just have to diversify and become more of a products and services within 15 or 20 industries. And automotive is just one of them. I think as a percent of Chinese production or GNP or even consumption, automotive is, even though they're a third of world car production by units, the dependency of the Chinese economy on automotive is, I think, teeny tiny compared to Germany.
Ha! Wow, you have opened a can of worms, Michael.
You take 1.5 billion people, Martin, even their food production, okay? And it's easy to find statistics. You take their luxury goods and high-end fashion, many
Okay,
countries of the world can't
Ma
compete
Michael.
making. Yeah,
Okay, number one, I need to give first some context where I'm coming from. And number two, this is my point of view. And number three, there is some history. So Germany has a neighbor country which is called Switzerland, and I believe you all know it, right? Switzerland 50 years or 80 years ago was known for automatic watches. Now, how many automatic watches companies are there in Switzerland today? I believe you can count them with the fingers of one hand, maybe two, if you take all of them together. And all of these watch companies share one single feature. These are high price watches. So what I can tell you from my perspective, the German car industry will not go down, but it will end up similar to the Swiss watch industry. There will be German cars that will be very good and very expensive and very prestigious to have. So, number one. The second question is, can the German general population live from those? And the answer is no. And the question is now, where are you coming from? Are you looking to help those companies who want to become the Swiss watch manufacturers? Because I would say today 99% of all automatic watches come from either Japan or China, or maybe Taiwan. I don't know if there's a Taiwanese. I'm not an expert in watches. But what I can tell you is that the industry that Germany has today, which is mostly car, general mechanical engineering, chemical, they are not able to be the mass manufacturers of what they did before. This has changed. But the people who did this are still there. And they will not become stupid overnight just because the environment has changed. But the future of this industry is not with the large companies that produce whatever has been produced before, but is with the small ones. And those rich, that is in your corner, the hidden unicorns. And that's to me, that's very clear. To me, is very clear. Germany will not be able to deliver what has been delivered to the general population over the past 80 years since World War II was over, since, to be more precise, since 1949, when the I don't know the name, but when the government decides what happens where. So this has ended 1949, and that was when the big growth of Germany has begun. And it ended, I would say, in April 2025, when the tariffs of President Trump were announced on cars from Germany to the US. Does this satisfy what you want to know, Michael, or do you have any?
Well, here, Martin, so a couple of comments. I think when Germany decided to launch the Volkswagen Beetle, it wasn't just the high-end Swiss watch like a Mercedes or BMW or Audi. They tried to tackle not only the US market, all over Europe. So Volkswagen's been I think a success over the last 75 years. I think the other key thing, Martin, if you take the population growth of Germany, 1950, it was about 76 million the last time I looked. In 2025, it was only 82 million. You take the growth of the United States or the population growth in China. So, you know, the homegrown economy of Germany is a function of population and in-country spending. I mean, it's just a very, very small economy compared to China. Even compared to the US, you're 20% of our population. And you know, there's of course there's export. So the experiment of making less expensive cars and offering those to the world market, I think, was a big success for Volkswagen. But it's pretty hard to totally depend on automotive export when you're competing with 30 million cars from China per year. So maybe you have to have more babies, Martin. Your population's just only grown a couple percent in 40 years.
Michael, what is it that you want from me?
Well, go out and procreate. You're still a young guy, you know?
No, that's yes and no. Yes. What I want to say is the following. The Volkswagen is not built by Volkswagen alone. Different from, I don't know, maybe US. Volkswagen depends one worker in or one employee in Volkswagen has about 3 workers or employees from suppliers. And that's the problem, because it's a tree-like structure. If you cut one worker off Volkswagen, that leads to 4 workers being cut off in the 6 levels below Volkswagen, because Volkswagen is an OEM. And the German economy is based on that tree-like structure that supplies to the OEM. I know that because I was part of it. And that's the problem. The problem is not that Volkswagen is producing less in Germany, because Volkswagen will survive by producing elsewhere, like in China, right? But the problem is that not the company in China will not employ so many German workers as before in Germany. So what you can tell about Germany is that this will impact the general living standard in Germany tremendously. That's what I'm telling people for years already, not only last year or so, many years. And that's what I say. And yes, you can encourage Germans to have more babies, yes, and then yeah, but that's not the solution. The problem is, does the general public realize that problem? And my answer is no.
Well, it's an industry structure problem, right?
Yes, no, it's not a structure problem, it's a change. And you can see it happening under our eyes. And it's well documented. So for our circle, it should serve as an example.
Yeah, what I meant, Martin, is to your point, it's an industry structure problem, because the current model that they're following is that 3-legged stool kind of an approach that you just described. And the industry structure has to change to survive. And I think what you're saying, is that, you know, they aren't recognizing, and when I say they, I'm talking about the politicians and the powers aren't recognizing that the industry structure needs to change. And maybe that is seen as too daunting, right? Of a task to be handled by one company. It's got to be, across, the entire, structure of Germany. I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah. Hey, when you talk about structure, I'm a Germany trained engineer. So if you put me, I'm now 60 years old. If you put me into any company in Germany that does engineering, I can do any task from handing out tools to the workers, to doing the work at the factory, to managing them, to do the business decisions, and I've seen everything, every level. And the thing was, when I was in university, I was trained to do that. It was more like an officer school, and I know because I was at officer school. It was more like an officer school for industry. So I was trained to fill out any task that is there, and that training is obsolete now, I can say, because I was trained to fit in anywhere where you put me. Um, I don't know. I don't know the U.S. Army. I know other armies, but not the U.S. But the U.S. is the largest. I believe if you have a officer cadet from somewhere, then he would fit in any deployment that they sent him. And so was a German engineer 40 years ago, or 35 years ago. 35 years ago, because that's when I graduated. And that thing is obsolete. It doesn't exist anymore. It's I know companies who say, "Hey, we rather hire someone without a degree but much younger because they're cheaper and more open to what we do, and we train them on the job as we want." So the training I went through 40 years ago is no longer relevant. And I can see it with my own eyes under my nose. The people who do inventions today, they're not able to express themselves with a pencil and a piece of paper because they have not learned how to express their thoughts in drawings that they do with their own hands on a piece of paper in front of them. They need a CAD system or even ChatGPT. They describe what they want to see, and then the ChatGPT would draw what they want to see, and then they said whether or not this represents it. So, yeah, that
Martin,
yes,
Martin, another perspective. Okay, so Wolfsburg is headquarters. So the number of employees making cars in Wolfsburg. So now I just Googled it. As a global company, Volkswagen has 112 production facilities across 17 European countries and 10 countries in North and South America, Asia, and Africa. So 75 years ago, when the Volkswagen Beetle came out of Wolfsburg, engineers that went to TUM or whatever would hope to get a job, as an engineer at Volkswagen headquarters. They're just have globalized so much that the typical German engineer doesn't just aspire to go to work in Volkswagen. And the number of jobs that were lost at Wolfsburg, I'm trying to find the numbers, but you probably know, Martin. I think it peaked at 400,000 employees, and now it's down to 80,000. The last one turned off the lights in Wolfsburg.
yes, but you need to know, for one job in the OEMs, there are 3 jobs outside.
Well, the comment that I just found about 112 production facilities, you're right. Those are probably more manufacturing than engineering, and there's thousands of suppliers for those 100 global plants. And those
Yes,
suppliers, they could be cheap parts from Hungary or Vietnam. I mean, who
yes,
knows what the supply chain has
and
grown and it's
exactly,
globalized.
and that network breaks down now. And over the past 40 years or 30 years, the OEM suppliers, and that's also the big difference between Chinese suppliers. I believe that the Chinese OEMs, the Chinese manufacturers, that they do everything from the metal sheet to the ready car on their premises, while in Germany it is outsourced, and there's a management on the outsourcing. And that's a problem. So for one not produced car that is exported from Germany, there is one job lost within the car manufacturer, but there is also 3 jobs lost outside of the car manufacturer who contribute to that. And we are not even talking about the suppliers that sell, I don't know, the daily amenities to the people who work in those factories. So the German manufacturing model is a model that is completely based on outsourcing. And that model is now collapsing.
Martin, what you say is probably right. I follow the newspapers, and especially in the past month, there have been increasing reports about those little suppliers going bankrupt. So it's absolutely correct what you say. But German industry is already reacting. I mentioned in earlier talks that they are simply shifting towards the fields which generate money and which are needed right now. That's not cars, it's defense industry, which draws a lot of engineers. One famous supplier to the automotive industry announced that it would shift its capacities to robotics, which is one future field. So there is already a reaction, regardless of what the engineers are trained to do so. The management has recognized the problem, and I hope they find the right solutions, but there is already a reaction. It's not just, as you say, Germany is running downhill and nothing happens. There are already reactions, which mean there is a shift in industry. So that's, my experience from reading newspapers and articles and stuff like that.
Yes, that is very normal because the Mittelstand means those guys who are between the OEMs and where the work is done. They are not stupid. Of course, they're used to that. And so I believe that's a reason why, making more babies and bringing them into this network and showing them how things work would help Germany. But I'm talking as a German, from a German perspective, with a view on Germany and Germany's future. It is not what can we do to take over the world. It's about what can we do in order to keep this country very rich as compared with others.
Yeah, it's a normal development in history. You get superpowers and you get inferior powers. Sorry for using the term. I didn't come up with a better one. But even in Roman times, we had this experience. No, Romans were a superpower and Germanic tribes were inferior. And from the exchange between Roman Empire and Germanic tribes, the Germanic tribes became larger and most powerful. We had several experiences, in the past World War II area. The superpowers defeated Japan. Japan was a low-cost country in manufacturing, first with cheap products. Then they learned from industrialized powers, improved their production techniques, improved their marketing techniques, brought products to the world market, which were recognized as being good. So labor costs rose. So Japan became a quality producing country. Next wave in this kind of evolvement of industries was China, which was a country for producing low-level products like whatever, dog food or stuff like that. They learned their lessons too. They developed their knowledge base. They created scientists. They created technicians. They started producing more high-level products. So history repeats itself over and over again. And Germany, and I'm absolutely agreeing with you, we were at the peak, and now the way is down because some more powerful countries learned their lessons and are trying to compete with us, and doing so very successful. There will be reactions, but we are facing some sort of industry cycle change, which has been present for at least 2,000 years in Europe. So I don't present a solution. I don't know if making more babies creates any solutions to
Okay.
that.
So Michael, how many babies are you going to make in the 2026?
Well, my family's grown from 2 daughters, now 4 grandkids, and my oldest granddaughter just turned 19. So I'm hoping she doesn't start having soon to be great grandkids. But I think the key is, I think what China has a limit of 1 child per family, but it's still 1.5 billion people, Martin. Germany at 80 million is about the size of the UK or Japan or whatever. So just in
No,
global
Japan is double the size of Germany.
I didn't realize that. What, Japan's 150 million people now?
120 something, I would say. 130. Yeah.
So
Now,
after the war, they started getting it on in geisha houses. What can I say, you know?
So Martin, Roland touched on something that I want to go back to. When you look at these, the lineage of superpowers, if you would, right, from the Romans, all the way through to present day, they rise and they fall, right? And now if we equate that to the corporations of the world, they rise and they fall. And the stock exchange here in the US, the New York Stock Exchange, has lost many of its bellwether companies over the years, and I forget the stats on that, but it's substantial. When you hear the numbers, it's sort of daunting, really, to understand how many companies have fallen out of the Fortune 500 listing. But other companies come in and replace them. But going back to Japan for a minute, they faced a very similar kind of scenario, only in the sense that the industry was shifting, right? And they were caught in this middle ground of, what are we going to do? They have an aging population, which is rapidly aging very quickly, and they came out with a concept which was called the well, let me describe it and then I can come back to that. So they came out with a concept of, what we're going to do, we're going to be a headquarters nation. And what that meant is they were going to, offsite all manufacturing to countries around the world, which they have done. I mean, you look at Toyota, you look at Honda, you look at Suzuki, right down the list, Sony, they've shifted production to foreign countries, right? And because there's not workers at home to do that. So the mothership in the country, in Japan, becomes the bank. And, that's how they made it through the 80s and the 90s. If you go back and look at corporate history. And, that kind of an industry shift has got to happen in Germany. Now, is it the same model? No, times have changed, and the global politics have changed, along with lots of other drivers. But Germany's going to have to come up with something that's equivalent to that kind of headquarters nation kind of concept that Japan faced and came up with, and really saved them to this point in time.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, okay, now I come from South America, Southeast Asia. Over the past 25 years, I've seen many companies who came here and wanted to build prototypes for anything, drones, mosquito traps, you name it, anything. And they all failed because you will not find the people that are required to build prototypes in Southeast Asia. There's not this culture of I build a model plane, or I alter my car by inventing something small. I don't know. It's not there. So you don't find the people who build an idea just to demonstrate that the idea works. But in Germany, I can tell you from my own experience, this is no issue at all. You want something, any idea, mechanical or electronical, they do it for you within no time. Very good. I'm not sure about China. My suspicion is that you find the same people there because they went through scarcity, and scarcity tells people to become innovative. And what I say is, in Southeast Asia, at least, you do not find that. And I believe that Germany has a very strong niche in building prototypes, in putting early ideas into something that is tangible and can be tested on certain markets in order to find out whether it's useful to scale it to a product. And I can see very strongly that this is the future of a possible future of Germany. I don't know whether the companies there would do it, but what I can tell you is that Volkswagen as itself will not follow this because they are a well-oiled machine, a clockwork that is made to put out cars on a large scale. But the smaller companies, those in the tier 3, 4, 5, 6, in that value chain, they can do that. But the problem is, the longer they wait, the less time is left for a change in direction, for pivoting.
I cannot comment on the qualifications of German engineers, but I remember from decades ago, which nicely matches what you just said, Martin. If you have a German-trained diploma engineer, he knows everything. So if you have this degree, then you really know about construction, you know about thinking, about making prototypes, about implementing technology and science. So I hope this still counts. One other aspect, especially if we compare China and Germany, this is not about the technology and the science. It's about marketing. It's a nice experience, and I wonder if any one of you can share this. Whenever you look for something special, let's say on Amazon or eBay or whatever, you will find a product. You will, with absolute certainty, find the right product from Chinese manufacturers. I mean, I made this experience in the
Roland, are you cut off, or is it me that I don't hear you?
No, I'm cut off. Thanks. You. I was just leaning forward and was accidentally hitting a space button. So can you hear me right again?
Yes.
Yes.
Where did you lose me? Where did you lose me?
To be sarcastic and is a joke, is not meant seriously, because we all do not like you.
Okay, thanks.
Roland,
I'm out of here.
Roland, you were saying you can go on Amazon and find anything you like. That's where we lost.
Okay. So thanks for giving me the starting point again. Okay, so in Corona times, I was trying to prepare my household for emergencies to appear. For example, I was looking for hand generators just to be able to power your cell phone if the sun doesn't shine and so on, and if the electricity is not working. Who makes such special items? Chinese manufacturers. You don't even find them in Germany. I was looking for test strips for water. For example, if you say water supply has been cut down, maybe due to electricity fails. Okay, how can you test if some water is still okay? Chinese manufacturers. I could name countless of examples. For example, electronic equipment, special USB hubs, stuff like that. It's amazing, but whatever you want, if you don't find it, you might find it when you look at Chinese manufacturers. So these people have incredibly good marketing people. It may play a role that they, of course, have a very, very large market. So if you produce some niche product for Germany, well, you have a population of 80 million. The Chinese have a population of 1,400 million. That's quite a difference, 15 times as much. So this may explain why so many things which would be absolutely unsellable in Germany because the market is not large enough for them might be developed and might be marketed in China. And of course, if you have platforms like Amazon or eBay, they can spread all those interesting products to the whole world. But this is another explanation why Chinese economy is so successful. They do not only have the technological and the scientific base right at the moment, they also have apparently quite good marketing people.
Sure, but Roland, a big disadvantage is in China, as far as I can see, they cannot develop the same types of prototypes for Europe as the Germans can. So it's always about, here's a Chinese product, does it fit into the German market? And for cars, I can tell you that a German would not want to have a Chinese car. I mean, I don't know who wants it, but I wouldn't want, because the features that they produce with the Chinese cars are not attractive for me as a German in Germany.
Yeah, that's some kind of reciprocal animosity. Because
And it has nothing to do with animosity. It's just about what do you want and what do you want.
It's also vice versa. The Chinese don't want the German stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, Roland, the examples you mentioned, generators, small and large, from the battery backup for your cell phone. Okay, water tests, electronics. The Chinese are very good at identifying huge markets for especially consumer type products like a generator for your house, Roland, so that they're able to reverse engineer and they can become lowest cost producers and dump it on Temu or Amazon, and all of a sudden you're impressed. But all they're doing is reverse engineering. They've got people scouring the world. They bring back products, they take it apart, and they figure out how to make it or figure out how to get a supplier from somewhere else. Before you know it, you've got Chinese products, but they're not fundamental. They're not innovative in the spirit of our today's 4x4, right, Martin? The Chinese aren't able to do prototypes or come up with really.
Yes, they are able to do prototypes. They are doing very good prototypes, but only for the Chinese market.
Well, the S-curves, Martin. Okay, so cars in Germany, they don't have the right features, whatever the features the Germans like. However, if they wanted to, they could probably figure out how to do it and make a car that's high end. They just don't want to make a high end car. They just want to make commodity cars.
Yep. Now we fall back.
Here I have to disagree. So they definitely make high end cars, but they are mostly for the local market. So they definitely have very expensive cars or also high end cars. But they are maybe not meeting certain security standards or are then too expensive abroad because abroad the people cannot pay for those cars.
We haven't seen any, Christoph, we haven't seen any BYD, $100,000 cars in U.S. showrooms. So you're right. They must be just high end for the Chinese regulatory environment.
People, I'm back to the Swiss watch manufacturing. So 100 years ago, I would say 100% of the automatic watches in this world stemmed from some Swiss factory, and that factory didn't have 50,000 or 500,000 workers. It had 50 workers. And now today, how many watches come from Switzerland? And I would say it's less than 0.1% of the global production. But those 0.1% of the global production, they come from Switzerland. And they come from big I don't know how many workers does Rolex have? I don't know. But
Omega is another one, isn't it, Martin? Omega started in Switzerland. That's bigger than Rolex, I think.
I thought Omega is Japanese, but I don't know.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, well, Rich is the watch expert. Come on, Rich, jump on
No,
board
it's
here.
Swiss. I also put the top 10 Swiss manufacturers in the chat.
Let me
Oh,
check.
and Omega is in Switzerland, huh?
In Biel. In
Okay.
Bienne.
Okay, Omega.
Look in the chat. The list is already there.
So, and where is the most famous one is
Tag Heuer, whatever, Breitling,
no, I would say the most famous one is the
Rolex.
Rolex,
Well,
yeah.
James Bond, where's Omega?
Rolex is
So
probably
Yeah, there's, I mean, the list is there, but you know what's interesting about the watch industry, Martin, is that the watch industry, you know, for the low end market, which was, I mean, and I'm talking the real low end, Swatch. Remember Swatch?
Yes, of
exactly.
course.
So if you take a look at the history of Swatch, right? They basically have, you know, grown and grown and grown with the success of Swatch, and they also grew through acquisitions, right?
Okay.
And they've expanded greatly to absorb a number of different watch brands in Switzerland. And now that's, you know, part of a group, and I forget the name off the top of my head, but that group, you know, produces a phenomenal number of watches in Switzerland, and all the way from the Swatch all the way up to mechanicals across their portfolio. And, you know, you look at Rolex and you look at, you know, Breitling, and you look at, Breitling is my favorite, but look at Rolex and some of the other brands, you know, Tissot and et cetera. And I mean, those are, you know, fantastic watches, but yeah, they're at all different entry points, right? As far as price points. So they're really no different than, you know, the automotive industry from you know, do you want a Chevrolet if you're in the US, or do you want a Cadillac, right? I mean, you can find, you know, a bucket of companies and a bucket of competitors within each of those, you know, categories. I just saw that note that was put up that, you know, Rolex has 9,000 employees. So that's a little bit bigger than I expected.
9,000 has Rolex has 9,000 employees.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
according to
maybe 8,500 from them just checking trademark violations.
In other words, BMW in 30 years has 9,000 employees.
well. Hey, Rich, I think Omega is probably 5 times bigger than Rolex, though, in
Nope.
headcount.
Okay, how many employees has
No. Look in the chat. Omega has half of it, 2.5.
and
yeah, but I mean,
And Tag Heuer is
headcount.
1,500.
Yeah, headcount versus revenue is what you need to look at,
Yes.
right?
no, it's not important. It's the headcount is important, because don't you see it? It's under our noses. It's the German car industry, and they were drivers for the entire industry. It's not about building a car. You can build a car anywhere, but if you have ever slipped into a BMW, in a sleek BMW, and you went up and down an alpine road for not a pass, not a road with bends and curves and whatever, and you had a BMW, and then you drove the same road with a I don't know, take any car of the world. Nah, whatever, it doesn't matter. It the, you can feel the difference. It's like you feel in a glove, and you slip along the road and very fast, and it's fun. And okay, there are people who really have fun when they wear a watch like Rolex and whatever features it had and whatever, and the brand, whatever. But this is a classic world brand, and they have 9,000 employees. And we are talking about the future of German car industry. And we come from 1 million OEM employees plus 3 million suppliers employees. So 4 million people. 9,000 versus 4 million. And we talk about the same shift, the industrial shift, the same. Go ahead, Rich.
I was just going to say, though, that, Rolex, I don't know their corporate history, but, we could research that and check it. But I bet we would find that the company has never employed more than probably 10 or 12,000, right? And, 9,000 is where they're at now, just based on revenue, from sales, right? From unit sales. And they're probably their production people it's probably about the same number as it's been for the last 20 years. I mean, it's all,
or maybe 200 years or whatever.
Yeah, right.
I think most of them are salespeople in
exactly.
every city.
That's my point. That's my point. Is that, I mean, they're on the business side. They're not on the production side. And that's totally different than the auto industry.
No, the auto industry in Germany will be the same.
I understand what you're saying, but when I'm saying historically, that when you look at Rolex and their history, that the production people there, the head count within production is probably in prototyping and development, et cetera, in R&D, that's probably the same number for the last, 20, 30, maybe even 50 years.
Yes.
And all the other people, that have been added on are headquarters kind of people, and, they're overhead. They're not doing anything. I mean, they might be selling, handling dealers and setting up dealer channels and, that kind of stuff. But, they're overhead when you look at it.
Yes, I think so.
So it's radically different than, the history of the automotive industry, where the automotive industry hired people based on revenue and sales growth. And over the years, and they had to hire production people to meet the production to generate more revenue. And the watch guys, haven't had to do that. They get greater efficiencies, out of, the people they have, with probably a much smaller percentage increase of people.
Okay, I will do the following. I researched the Swiss watch industry and how it was over the past 100 years. And I believe that it went down from millions to tens of thousands.
It could be, because if you throw in the low end, where the Japanese and I don't know about the Chinese, but certainly the Japanese came in and really sort of killed the market when they went to a quartz-based watch, and they really dominated the marketplace, right? There's some American brands, like Hamilton and a few others that have been around, in the U.S. that made a really nice watch, but You know, they're basically, you know, a shell of what they were at one time. You know, just given the pricing pressures, right?
Yes.
I expect the price of growing diamonds. I expect a diamond watch now, no longer quartz or sapphire. I expect diamond soon.
Okay, that's interesting. No,
Yeah, Rich, it's interesting that you brought up the issue with Swatch, because when I recall those days, there was a complete industry change. I mean, before there were mechanical watches, and then, as you said, the Japanese came with the quartz watches. First these LED watches, and then the LCD watches, and nobody wanted to have mechanical watches any longer. And what I remember, that was the real marketing surprise when Swatch entered the market. They had a completely different brand image, not the stiff Swiss, the perfect ones, but the crazy ones, the funny ones. And I just looked up the numbers for Swatch, and so we have the employee numbers for Rolex and Omega.
Swatch, you know, had, you know, ultimately when in their peak, maybe they still do. I haven't traveled, you know, outside the U.S. since 18, but you know, basically when you look at some of the airports, right, they used to have a Swatch store, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And
now,
you would look at the, you know, the watches in there and the cases, and they had a huge variety of watches. They even had, you know, some very sophisticated looking watches, but, you know, they all had the basic movement, right? And what made them different was the color and the color of the band, right? You would switch the band colors, right? And the band types to give you a different kind of look for the watch. That was one of their big innovations during that period.
yeah, but maybe we will see the same thing in the German car industry, really. Okay, people, we have reached the end of the hour. I don't want to open another team. I thank you so much for attending tonight. Next week is my birthday, and I believe I'm somehow caught up in some other event. I will probably come here, but it depends on you. Please take over as you want. I have also some news to voice out, and but we will see you next week. Thank you again for attending. See you next week again, and goodbye. Bye bye.
Okay, take care. Bye bye.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.